Eiffel Tower listeners, we have got episode 2 for you.
Thank you.
Just like that. And we've got, there's Jimmy V, James Vazino on my left.
And Ollie G to my... Well, I'm not to your left. I'm opposite you.
Wow. If we're going clockwise, you're on my left.
Okay, fair enough.
I was thinking, do we call you my sidekick?
I call you your professional wingman.
The pro wingman. So James, my professional wingman, is here in the studio today, even though he's been on a long holiday and missed out on some of the interviews. But
I haven't missed out on this one.
You're not going to miss out on this one. Stephen Clarke, the author.
He's coming back. Can you hear him?
He should be on the stairs any second now.
Because for the listeners, we've actually moved place between season 1 and episode 2. We're now in a new location.
That's right. So people who know Paris, episode 1, season 1, we were over in, what would you call it, the 19th arrondissement?
18th, Marquet de Poissonnier we were.
Oh, I love when you say it. Marquet de Poissonnier. we were out there right by the trains that used to come in. Not anymore.
Yeah, we used to have the Eurostar going by
but
all the
now
time.
now we're near.
Now we've got a church.
Well, now we're on the other side of Gare du Nord. You could probably still hear the trains if you put your head out.
I haven't heard any so far. But
Any old how. Today we've got author Stephen Clarke coming in.
returning guest.
First returning guest we've ever had.
What's he going to do? Talk about more Merde? Are
you
you going to ask him about more Merde?
That's the thing. We'll tell it now so that we don't have to get into it when he's here. But he has got one of his books is being made into a theatre show.
Oh.
So anyone that's interested in theatre, interested in Stephen Clarke, this is something you got to find out. What's it all about? I don't know. We're going to ask him.
We're having a
about
lot
it when
of
he comes in.
performance-related things on this show, I can feel.
It's a
this
performance-related show this season.
Are you planning something? The Eiffel Tower show at some point?
The
musical, yeah.
Well, let's stay tuned and find out.
On Grand Boulevard.
But speaking of stay tuned, remember, at the end of this episode, as usual, we got a story from Corey.
Story from Corey.
And this time, we'll let him tell you what it's about.
He's
but
going back into the dark side.
He always does, doesn't he?
Again, yeah. No, there are some brighter ones coming up on the next episode.
He's a bit like our weatherman. Weather at the end of the news, you got the weather.
Right.
That's what he's going to be doing for us today.
Yeah, but the weatherman, he shines the place. He brings all his glory to the piece, doesn't he?
And Corey brings doom and gloom.
We like it.
Let's see what happens when he comes in after Stephen Clarke. Let's do it.
Eiffel Tower with Oliver G.
Stephen Clarke, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Return guest.
Yep.
Our first.
Are you? Am I? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's because of the staircase. The others probably didn't make it up.
No one.
the stairs.
I was saying to Stephen before he came on that he's the first person that I've warned of the 6 flights of stairs to get up. How do you feel?
I feel great. I was very relieved when we passed those corpses on like the 4th and 5th floors. I thought I'm doing pretty well.
Do you know there's a website about Everest? It's called thedeadbodiesofeverest.com or the corpses of Everest.
Right.
Bit grim.
Yeah, I thought there was also one about like the toilet paper of Everest, and because they leave everything on their way up there.
Oh
don't they?
my!
So anyway.
They got a website for everything these days. Anyhow, last time you were on the show, season 1, I waited until the very end of the show to plug your product, and that was pretty poor form, I thought. So, so today you're in here to plug something. Let's get straight into it.
Right.
What have you got going?
In this September, I'm doing. Some actors are putting on a stage show, a sort of cabaret show based on my book, The Merde Factor. So I've cut it down into a 1-hour show.
Okay.
So what it is, it's Paul West live on stage.
The hero of your for anyone who's not read your books.
Paul West, the hero, the narrator anyway of the Merde books, is on stage and he interacts with all the other characters in the book, The Merde Factor, who are played by one actress. She kind of does all the voices and everything, and she sort of changes. She's really good. And there's also a musician who's kind of does musical commentary while they're talking.
Right.
He comes in with stupid songs and things like that. And so it's just an hour-long sort of... It sticks to the plot of the book, but it's just sort of having fun with Paul West on stage.
So were you involved in rewriting this to fit it, adapting it?
I rewrote it. I sort of cut the book down into sort of sections of dialogue and narrative, and also sort of added jokes. In the book, there's a poetry contest, and we've already done it a couple of times in a pub, and the poetry worked really well, so I've added more bad poetry in this. So it's September the 18th and 25th at the Théâtre de Nesle, in the Rue de Nesle in the 6e.
N-E...
Yeah, it's not Nestle.
No, N-E-S-L-E.
That's different.
Nesle.
Yeah, Nesle, Théâtre de Nesle, 18th and 25th of September.
So what can we expect? People who've never seen a book put into a play.
Never seen a book.
A book of yours put into a play.
It was not surprising because it's the first one. That's what I'm saying. It's Paul West on stage talking to the audience. Like, the books are always written like it's as if he's talking to you.
Right.
The narrative is like very light, and so Paul was talking to you about his life in Paris, and in this case, he has no money, and he's living in a room a lot like this, a very small chambre de bonne, except he's got a blocked toilet in one corner, and
We don't even have
you don't
a
have one of those. No, but his is blocked. So, and so he's kind of living in semi-literal merde. He hasn't got a job, so he tries to become a French civil servant, which, as we all know, is the last job for life on Earth.
Right.
Even the Japanese emperors now abdicate, whereas maybe the Queen is the last job for life on Earth. We don't know yet. But so he wants to become a French civil servant, but he just gets into all sorts of merde with his old boss. Girlfriends, a mad Breton, a mad Breton woman, and other people. And so he sort of has dialogues with the actress who's playing the other characters, And then we've just added this element of music to sort of in between the scenes, and and we're pretending that it's a sort of live recording of a radio show. So we have a sort of rather stupid weather forecast in the middle, and then ads and stuff like that. It's just
That's pretty cool.
it's just a lot of messing about.
Was it hard to switch it from book to play?
No, I did. In fact, I've been cheating because a couple of years ago, a Czech theatre company just cut sections of the book out and performed them as a kind of animated reading on stage.
Right.
And I liked the way that they'd cut the story. So I took the same basic I took the same basic scenes that they'd used, but then I sort of added to them, and I've sort of changed it a bit. But I like the way they'd cut down the story into a 1 hour segment. But the music and the poetry and everything this time is new.
Yeah, you've got a musical background, don't you?
Well, I used to play in bands a lot. Yeah.
So were you involved in the music?
Yeah, I've written the theme tune.
Here we go.
Yeah, the theme tune, which makes me laugh anyway, because it sounds like a sort of chanson française with this sort of crooner voice.
Yeah.
But in fact, all he's saying is the most obscene French swear words. So he sounds like he's being all seductive, but in fact he's just being completely obscene. And that's what, when people come in, this music is playing softly in the background, and then as we get nearer the show, it's turned up and up and up until people who understand French start thinking, hang on, did he really say it? Yeah, he probably did.
Can you sing?
Can I sing? Well, I do sing on the.
Can we have a little taste of the?
The tune sort of ends up as. It's a sort of can type song.
Merde.
No, it ends up as Merde in France. You sort of go, he's sort of crooning like that.
Well, Stephen, it's interesting that you bring up swearing.
Yeah.
Because I read your. You know what? I want to record you if that's all right. I want to do a little video of something I'm about to ask you. So let me press play on my recorder. This is something that people listening at home can watch on Facebook. But bear with me for 5 seconds while I just press play. It's going to be about swear words.
Right.
Okay, so Stephen Clarke, best-selling author. We're talking about swear words here. You've got on your website, you've got about yourself that you had to put rude words into French dictionaries.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, this was back in the 90s when people still use actually dictionary books, unlike now. And I was taken on to update French and German dictionaries, which had been written sort of in the 70s and 80s by rather prim ladies, who were very interested in language, but who didn't know that words like motherfucker existed, and certainly didn't want to suggest how French and German people should translate these things when they hear them. If you listen to an American film and he says, motherfucker, whatever.
Yeah.
Presumably French people weren't supposed to translate it. So I had to go in and add these English swear words into the dictionary and then get together with French translators and say, okay, so how would you translate it if someone said to you, you dirty motherfucker, how would you translate that? And we'd have these long literary intellectual conversations.
So you had to put the French into the English into the French.
I had to put the English into the English side of the dictionary, and then the French translators would translate all my little phrases.
Right, what conversations.
Oh, it was great fun.
With that in mind, I want you to give me 3 French swear words that I need to know that are great for some reason and how to use them.
Well, in the Merde Factor show, there are the 3 favourite ones are, of course, merde, because obviously merde is kind of the backbone of French society, because it means so many different things. It doesn't just mean literal shit. Actors say merde before they go on stage. break a leg, good luck.
I heard that's got something to do with trudging through the horse Merde before they get into
that's it. If there's lots of Merde outside the theatre, that means lots of people have turned up in carriages to watch your show. So it's Merde can be a good thing. So Merde is a very useful one.
Okay, that's one.
That's one. In the show, Paul West has a lot of trouble pronouncing and understanding when someone calls him an andouille. Because andouille is very difficult for English people to pronounce, is literally a sort of long penis-shaped sausage.
Right.
The smelliest French sausage that exists. It smells like, it really does. I think it's made of pig's rectum, and I don't think they clean them before they put them in sausages.
This has got all the elements of a good swear word.
Yeah, andouille, especially because of the sound, andouille.
So how we pronounce andouille?
Andouille.
Andouille.
So someone says this to him, and he doesn't understand why someone's calling him a penis-shaped sausage. And so in the show, they go into it in quite some detail. And the other one in the show, which gets talked about quite a lot, is enculé.
Enculé. And just for the people who are watching this on Facebook, the show that you're referring to, this is the Merde Factor.
The Merde Factor show, which is on the 18th
and 25th of September
at the Théâtre de Nesle in Paris. Yeah.
I've got it written down too.
Yeah, good. And so enculé, which is quite an interesting swear word, because what it basically means, it's swearing at someone by saying that they are a recipient of sodomy. Now,
that's a nice way to put it.
To some people, they don't mind at all being a recipient of sodomy.
Of course.
So therefore, you're not calling them. It's almost like you're swearing at someone, saying, you football fan or you chocolate lover or whatever. Although chocolate lover, that'd be a bad joke. But anyway, so they go into enculé quite a lot as well.
Okay, so let's have one more pronunciation lesson. Merde.
Merde.
Andouille.
No, andouille.
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 Very good.
Okay.
Andouille and enculé.
Enculé.
Yeah.
And those three words will get you by in a... I mean, you could use them in a shouting match with a French person,
You
perhaps?
can call people that, or you can call people andouille and enculé if you really want to. But merde is just a general, swear word if you stub your toe or can't find something or...
Well, there you have it. There are the three French words that you need to know. Thanks for that.
There are lots of them, but they're the three French words that are in this show most often.
Well, thanks for sharing. I'm going to press stop
Okay.
on the vid. That was good. Okay. On from swear words and on to the literary topics, which is...
No, I don't think there's any, distinction. You can have swear words in literary topics and you can swear while talking about literary topics. I think that language is language and it really doesn't matter. As long as it's not aggressive language or, racist or hate-inducing language, language is language. So.
What do you think about people that bleep out swear words and, the C word? Do you think it's as bad as everyone makes it?
Well, I mean, I think it's a shame if they do it for sort of non-political reasons, because there are swear words that are, as I said, a swear word that is designed to sort of cause hatred or real offence. Yeah, that's bad. But a swear word which is just being humorous, just saying fuck or something. I don't, it's an old Anglo-Saxon noise. It doesn't,
Yeah, right.
It's just a noise.
It's just a collection of letters, really.
And it doesn't really mean anything. So why not? Why bother?
Why not? I mean, I think we talked about this last time. You made a trademark basically out of merde.
Out of merde, yeah. But merde, the French aren't like the Brits, because the French use swear words a lot more freely in the media than we do. So they'd never bleep out merde. You can say merde almost any time on French media, except maybe during a sort of, if they put live mass or something, they probably,
right,
during religious ceremony, they probably wouldn't say it. But apart from that, they'd say it any time.
I like how they don't bleep or cross out English swear words in French. Like there's a section in 20 Minutes newspaper that's just called "What the fuck" in English, and I see it when I'm on their website sometimes. And I'm like, wow, you'd never see that. It just seems so out of place.
Because they're completely detached. They don't really. It's just a noise to them.
Yeah.
So they don't care.
Well, let's get back to books in Paris. I've just been reading your book Merde, actually, which has a different name in America, I think.
They called it, yes. They said the word actually was too English, which I thought was a bit silly because Paul West is English. But Merde, actually, so they called it In the Merde for Love, which created a huge amount of confusion because I kept getting emails from people saying they'd bought In the Merde for Love and saying to me, how dare you? It's the same book as Merde, actually. It's not my fault. It's the American publisher.
Okay. lesson there, don't change a book's name.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I was reading that, and what I really liked, and we talked about it before, I like the way you write. I read the first book way before I ever came to Paris, but now I can read it with the knowledge of how Paris is like and see things and go, yes, exactly. But what I really like is how you see it's kind of like observational comedy mixed in with the storyline, right? And for example, one that I really like that I was talking to James before about is how Paul West moves to the street Eugène Gibez. Right? And like what I liked about the way you did it, and maybe you can tell me a bit about your style of writing here, but you bring it up, the taxi driver laughs about it, everybody laughs about this street, because kind of like what I'm doing now, I haven't explained what it means. And then it's not till chapters later that you explain the joke. That's the sort of punchline, which is Eugène is the name, Eugene, I guess. And Gibez means...
It sounds like I fuck there.
Right.
So when he says, take me to the rue Eugène Gibez, it sounds as if he's saying to the taxi driver, take me to the rue Eugène because I go there to fuck.
Right.
And so the
but
taxi
really, it's
driver,
the name of Gibez is the name.
Eugène Gibez is the name. Is a real street in Paris. Yeah.
So how does that come about? Did you see? I mean, did you just see that one day? Did someone tell you about it, and then you think, I got to get this in a book?
I saw the someone told me about that it existed, right? And so I just thought up, a good way of using it in a joke.
And that's sort of, is that the way that you go about the writing? Because it is like stand-up comedy. It's observational stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I do think in the same, when I'm writing, I do think in the similar way to a stand-up comedian, which is, because I've written jokes for stand-up comedian before. And I wrote some jokes for Tim Vine, the stand-up, years and years ago. I probably helped him to stop getting famous, more quickly. But I'm not even sure how many he used, but because I sent, but I sent him to him, and he phoned me up, and he's kind of performed them over the phone to me, and he explained to me, he gave me the sort of masterclass in which ones worked and which ones didn't. Right. It was really, really fascinating for me, anyway. And you realise in a stand-up joke, especially someone like Tim Vine who does puns and things, the word order is really important, and you have to hit the funny word at the end and all that sort of stuff. And so I really do think while I'm writing, it might just read as if it's sort of fluffy dialogue and Paul West, just talking nonsense. But in fact, I do work really hard to try and structure and rhythm the jokes and everything. Yeah. And so, I do think about, okay, what am I going to do with this basically funny word? How am I going to use it? So I do try and sort of, make the best of it. Yeah. It's a kind of real thought process. It's not, as you can tell, I'm not at all naturally funny. It's just,
Are you talking to me or the listeners?
No, everybody. I'm not. I would be shit as a stand-up comedian,
right?
Because I go all the time. But when I sit down and have the time to write, I can sort of structure things to make them funnier. Anyway.
You could just swear a lot if you ever did stand-up comedy. That seems to work.
Well, that's the bad stand-up comedians. Just say fuck in the middle of every sentence and hope it's going to make people laugh.
Can be funny though sometimes.
It can be funny, but when they do it in every single joke, you get tired of it. Whereas there are some who never do it. Like Tim Vine, he never ever swears. Ever. He doesn't need to. He just the words.
It's because you've written all his jokes.
No, I wrote about 20, and I really don't know how many he used. So.
All right, I've got some quick questions at the end. Last time we did the quick fire round asking you for recommendations for restaurants and cafes. Regular listeners said that you'd skirted the answers.
Really?
Yeah, they said you didn't really give anywhere. So I'm not going to... Was that a conscious decision?
I can't remember.
Do you get recognised on the street?
No.
No?
No.
Are you worried people will come up to you at your cafe and start interrupting?
I mean, it has happened. It has happened. People have rather short memories, and what happens to me more is either people say, you live in Paris, you should read these books by this fellow called Stephen Clarke. Yeah. Or people have said to me, if you go on the TV or something and do a big show, for a few days afterwards, people might think, hey, I've seen you somewhere, you my window cleaner or whatever. But they kind of recognize you a bit. So that has happened to me. That happened to me, I was crossing a road in Miami, and suddenly someone said to me in French, he said, je te connais toi, I know you. Yeah. And I stopped him a little bit, and I thought, do you? And then he said, yeah, I saw you on France 2 news.
Because you do the
3
French,
days
you
ago.
do the French TV programs as well as anything in English as well, huh?
I do more stuff in French than in English because the French are very open-minded, and the French always want to know, what do the English think of that? What do they, think of this? Or if anything English happens, they look for English people or Brits or who can go on TV and radio and talk in French about the thing. So I go on, and as long as they mention the name of one of my books, they don't pay anything. You just go on and
Much like us.
plug yourself.
But we've done a.
Are you not paying?
No, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I'm going.
Oh, there he goes.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I'll do one more question.
Right.
How did you learn French, and how can the rest of us learn?
I cheated. I studied French at university, but the way I really learned French.
Hang on, did you cheat in university? Is that what you mean?
No. I mean, I learned. People were pounding the grammar into my head.
Right.
But but the best way to learn, I found, was when I was at school. We had these very attractive French students who came over, and so you always turned up for your conversation classes, and that worked wonders. And then during every holiday, I was off in France and Germany, trying to put into practice what I'd spoken about at school.
So find attractive teachers and travel a lot to the countries that you want to learn.
Yeah.
That's pretty easy.
Yeah, it's easy.
Well, on that note, and with that advice, another plug, check out Merde Factor. We'll have links on the Eiffel Tower's website. Check out Stephen Clarke's books, which I'm sure you've all heard of before. Any good place to start? Do we start at the beginning for those books?
Well, lots of people have read A Year in the Merde, but as you said, Merde actually is book 2, and it kind of follows straight on from A Year in the Merde. And Merde actually is one of my favourites because he goes all over to France and he has a lot of fun. I had a load of fun writing that. It was great fun. But then you don't have to read them in any order, so,
There you go. You heard it here first, maybe. But thanks very much for coming in, Stephen Clarke.
You're welcome.
And good luck with the show. And keep an eye out for Corey Frye on the way up the steps as you leave.
All right. Dead or alive?
Well, okay, good question. Hopefully alive because he's got to do the last section.
Right.
But thanks again for coming in, Stephen.
Okay.
All right. Well, that was a pretty cool show with Stephen Clarke.
Yeah, he was interesting. Are you going to go to see the theatre show?
Yeah, I'm probably going to read a little bit of Mouths.
Yeah, I'll probably see his theatre show.
Yeah. Have you read the book since?
Plenty of his books.
Plenty of Mouths.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that's about it for this
Whoa,
week.
whoa. You know what you're forgetting?
What am I? Of course.
It's
Time for Corey.
It's only time for a story from Corey. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Good to see you.
Take a seat.
Did you recognize that white-haired man on the steps just out there?
No, I did not see him, actually.
You didn't see him?
No, I didn't see
That's
him.
Stephen
But
Clarke.
I would love to meet him. I'm a fan.
Have you read his books?
Yeah, I've read a couple of his books.
Join the club.
Absolutely.
What an author. Anyway, if you're just tuning in for the first time to the Eiffel Tower and you're thinking, I thought the show was over, you're wrong. Because we've got a story from Corey Frye. We don't even know what you're going to tell us this week.
Well, I know you're talking to an author. I thought we'd keep it in sort of the literary realm here and talk about. Could I ask you?
Can I guess?
Go ahead and guess.
Are you going to ask me about Shakespeare and Company?
No. I am going to ask you, however.
Cliche.
I'm going to test your literary knowledge. What would you say is the most well-known book that ever was set in Paris?
The Bible.
Set in Paris.
I haven't read it.
No, we're talking about the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Or officially, for you purists, the original name was Notre Dame de Paris, but the name has become the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
We're talking about the Disney film.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
The cartoon.
I haven't read the book.
So
Full confession. Have you, James?
No. I haven't
now,
seen
as
it.
a conscientious tour guide, I did read the book, but it took me like 3 tries. I couldn't get through the first chapter, and so I got the audiobook.
Why was it
and listened to
boring?
It's 19th century
Slow.
literature.
Corey probably read it
Ah.
in French as well. Didn't you, Corey?
No, I'm not that much of an overachiever.
No,
Absolutely
fair,
not.
Me neither.
But the story is very, very famous, and you can't not think about Quasimodo, the Hunchback, when you're at Notre Dame Cathedral.
Quasimodo.
Nice.
Ooh, I like when James says it. Quasimodo.
So we assume that he was a figment of Victor Hugo's
Of
imagination.
course he was fictional.
Right, set in medieval Paris, and he's ringing the bells up in the bell towers.
Oh, was he?
But
Sorry, Corey, I'm going to let you...
It sounds like, I'm not saying anything.
I'm going to let you continue, Corey.
I
I was trying to... I
really?
was,
Oh, was he? Tell me more.
no, keep going. I will
way.
keep quiet.
Okay, so you can't go to Notre Dame without thinking about Quasimodo for a minute, right? He's the classic hunchback, deformed outcast living up in the bell towers. But we assume that he was fictional, that he was a figment of Victor Hugo's imagination, right? But recent evidence has been discovered that implies that maybe Quasimodo wasn't as fictional as we thought. There might have been an actual hunchback of Notre Dame. So let me explain the story. So a few years ago, up at the Tate in London, right, the Tate Archive, there was an archivist going through these old journals from the 19th century, and there was a British sculptor who was in charge of redoing the sculptures of Notre Dame in the 1820s, and he had a daily journal. And so this archivist is pouring through the journal, and he makes a startling discovery. He finds that this sculptor named Simpson was working in the 1820s, and he references another carver, another stonemason on this construction site that was hunchbacked. And everybody called this guy Monsieur le Bossu, which means Mr. Hunchback. And this carver, who's in the 1820s there working on the site of Notre Dame, was very antisocial and always, didn't like to talk to people, and he would recede into the dark corners of the cathedral to work on his sculptures. So they're trying to put the pieces together still, but not only was there an actual hunchback man at Notre Dame, but he would have been there exactly at the time that Victor Hugo would have been researching his novel.
So he might have been a friend of Victor Hugo's.
Exactly.
Or
so
he might have just seen him.
we believe that Victor Hugo either saw this hunchbacked sculptor or befriended him, maybe took him out for coffee and got to know his story, and that would have been the spark that kicked off the story of Quasimodo.
Maybe he saw him kicking around in the top of the tower one day.
That could be as well.
Yeah.
And so, interestingly, as a side note, the reason that Notre Dame is even still here in Paris is thanks to that story of the hunchback. Why? Because it was such a huge hit in 1831 when they published it, international bestseller, that people flocked to the cathedral to see where their favorite novel took place. Just like the Da Vinci Code had an effect earlier like that. And then when they got to Notre Dame, they were quite underwhelmed because the cathedral was falling apart. Nobody was maintaining it. And so it was really Victor Hugo's propaganda within the novel saying we need to save these old buildings that prompted the government to save Notre Dame. So
Wasn't the Eiffel Tower only meant to be there for a year or two as well?
The Eiffel Tower
Not
was
even.
meant to be there for 20 years. That was the
It was
contract.
20 years.
Yeah.
And you know what saved the Eiffel Tower? Ooh, the listeners are getting a bonus here. You know what
lucky
saved?
listeners.
You know what saved?
Okay, you're asking me, so you obviously want me to guess. What would have saved the Eiffel Tower? The announcement that Paris is getting the Olympics in 2024.
The thing that saved the
No.
Eiffel Tower from being dismantled is the same object that's on top of it now. It's the big antenna. So that antenna was used not only for telegraphs and radio, but during World War I, the Germans were outside Paris looking to attack, and one of their messages was intercepted by the Eiffel Tower, and the French were able to mount a surprise attack and defeat the Germans outside the city.
There's your story from Corey.
Boom.
No,
Double
that's two stories from Corey.
Double.
We'll end it on that note. Thanks for coming in, Corey. We'll see you next week. Do one of his tours. Get VIP treatment. Not literally. Well, we don't know well, do they get VIP treatment if they mention the Eiffel Tower?
Oh, absolutely.
There you go. VIP treatment. A French Fry in Paris. Check his blog out too. Check our blog out for some pictures and stories. And we'll see you again next week with another cool guest and another story from Corey. Thanks for listening.
Eiffel Tower with Oliver G.